Today, I want to talk about this year's Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences, its laureates, the concepts they won with, and what innovation managers, top managers, company owners, and entrepreneurs can take from these concepts. This year's Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences was awarded to Joel Mokyr, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt for having explained innovation-led economic growth. So their work is connected to innovation and, well, how it drives growth, how it drives economic growth in our society in general. The focus is on macroeconomy. However, it doesn't mean that company owners and managers have nothing to draw upon from their publications and ideas. I believe there are quite a few points to learn from. Let's talk about them. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa and I've been working for more than 5 years on organizing collaborative university competitions for world well-known companies to solve their extreme innovation challenges. And now I continue my journey with the goal to foster innovation by helping different parties of the innovation process collaborate and co-create. On this channel, I explore collaboration projects for innovation management, share my experience in managing these projects and processes, and uncover strategies for making collaboration efforts more effective. Let me start with some key ideas. One half of the prize was awarded to Professor Joel Mokyr for having identified the prerequisites for sustained growth through technological progress. What Professor Mokyr was talking about in his publications and books was connected to the reasons and, well, prerequisites behind why breakthroughs and innovative products started to actually drive the economic growth of our society. These days, we are in quite a good position, in good place in terms of household incomes, healthcare, education, entertainment, communication, and other things. We always want something better, but the truth is we're doing quite all right compared to what it was even, let's say, like 50 years ago. And you know what? It was not always the case. This economic growth we've been experiencing is quite a new thing. It was not like that before. For centuries, society had various breakthroughs like the windmill, printing press, thermometer, clock, etc., many different things and technologies. But these products and technologies did not have a significant impact on the economies of countries. Only over the past 200 years, a little bit more than 200 years, starting from the Industrial Revolution, has humanity started to see significant changes and an increase in opportunities for everyone. And Professor Mokyr suggests that the reason why this is happening is because the way we use knowledge and cooperate with this knowledge has changed. So he argues that in order to achieve this sustained economic growth we experience these days, we need a combination of both propositional and prescriptive knowledge. We need to understand why something happens, why something works. Thus, we need propositional knowledge. But we also must have practical knowledge. We must have skills and methods and instructions to implement what we know and to create new products in the real world. And it's about prescriptive knowledge. So that's how we can accumulate useful knowledge, which is a combination of propositional and prescriptive knowledge. And that's how we can build new knowledge based on it, successfully innovate, successfully grow. And before the Industrial Revolution, that was not the case. These two flows of knowledge, like prescriptive and propositional knowledge, were kind of parallel, but the Industrial Revolution allowed us to link them, which led to continuous economic growth. For example, like nowadays, scientists, they don't just do experiments, They have specific methods and rules that allow them to obtain measurable, reproducible results, not only understand why something happens, but also how to reproduce it, how to do it again, and how we can recreate it in our products. So they are able to answer why things happen and how they should happen in order to create new products. So these two types of knowledge, propositional and prescriptive, they go hand in hand together. As we know, ideas themselves, they cost nothing. What is really important is their realization. So you also need technical, you need commercial skills to create products and then to sell these products. And that's just another prerequisite for successful economic growth based on innovation. And yeah, I believe that those skills are something that we have also mastered. Another reason why we can enjoy this sustained economic growth based on innovation is because our society became more open to risk, more open to change. We still have a conservative majority that is kind of hesitant about new things, but we have become more tolerant toward completely new ideas and solutions, which is great. And moreover, we became more tolerant toward failed attempts to innovate, to create something new. It is also important. And yeah, thanks to the Enlightenment. But overall, this economic growth led by innovation happens these days because we have a combination of all these various factors, and only this combination allows us to achieve this growth. And I believe that from these points I have mentioned, we can derive the very first important lesson for managers, entrepreneurs, and company owners. These days, many managers are overly focused on practical frameworks that consist of simple steps they must follow in order to achieve success. We are constantly looking for simple instructions that we can follow. We're looking for a magic pill that would immediately bring us customers and revenues. We just forget about understanding things and we ignore this question, why does it work? Because it is too complicated to think about whys, and we of course want to have simple answers. Well, the work of Professor Mokyr shows that a simple answer to sustained economic growth doesn't exist. And I do believe that we can talk not only about the economic growth of society, but we can also talk about it on a smaller level, on the level of a single company. If we want to achieve this sustained growth for our business, we should not look only for practical steps, but we should also look for theoretical, propositional knowledge that explains why these steps might work or why they might not work in our case. Because trust me, all these instructions the internet is filled with, it's never gonna work for your business without adjustment, and in some cases they would never work at all. I believe that we should be ready to dive deep into things, understand their complex nature, and constantly look for answers. Then, only then, our knowledge builds up and we can create novel solutions that work for us, for our companies, that would improve what we already have, whether it's processes or products or services. And that's the only way for us to grow. And of course, we should be able to implement it and be open to changes and taking risky moves. Now, as I started talking about taking risky moves, I want to go to the second half of the Nobel Prize that was awarded to Professor Philippe Aghion and to Professor Peter Howitt for the theory of sustained growth through creative destruction. Professor Aghion and Professor Howitt in their work created a mathematical economic model that demonstrates how innovation leads to sustained growth and the conditions under which equilibrium growth emerges, depending on research incentives and business expectations. This growth depends on parameters like R&D productivity and market structure. The foundation for sustained growth is creative destruction, a continuous process during which some products and technologies become obsolete and new, better products and technologies replace them on the market. Some companies lose the competition and die, and new companies are created. In general, their model is based on the fact that innovation and technological progress are not an absolute good for everyone, because someone will eventually lose, some companies will lose, someone will not get lucky, because yes, you can increase your chances for success by, for example, increasing investments in R&D, but luck is a very important factor here. And yeah, someone will win, some companies will win. Their model also shows how economic expectations about innovation and research and development in the next period might hinder innovation in the current period. Because at one point, we of course need to innovate. But if subsequent innovation comes too rapidly, it reduces the monopoly profits we can get from our current innovative product. I just want to repeat it once again to make it clear for everyone. So imagine you have an innovative product on the market and you are an innovation leader on this market. And of course, you hope that you can gain as much revenue as possible from this product. But think about it, like if you expect that another innovative product that will replace your current one is coming too soon in the next innovation phase, in the next period, next year, for example, of course, you will not be able to gain all the benefits you are hoping for. And then the question is, what is the point for you to innovate? What is the point for you to invest lots of money in R&D if you will just not be able to get this profit, to get this revenue you're hoping for? And you need to cover your R&D expenses. And I actually want to highlight the word monopoly here when I mentioned monopoly profits, because the laureates modeled innovation as a process of temporary monopolies. There are other types of market that exist, okay? And there are some tweaks and differences actually. But there are other papers and models exist to explain these tweaks and differences in other markets. But anyway, if we expect our product to quickly become obsolete, that will make us lose our revenue. We might get discouraged from investing in R&D now. And of course, we have no guarantee our R&D efforts will be successful no matter how much we invest. And then if we develop this entirely new product that makes our current one obsolete, it might actually partially cannibalize our profits from our current products. So yeah, just think about it, like if you introduce a new product on the market that will replace your current one, I mean, you kind of also, you take these profits from your company, right? And this is this so-called arrow replacement effect. And for more information about this effect, take a look at the paper written by Kenneth J. Arrow in 1962. And there is also this general equilibrium or wage effect. if you expect more innovation in the next period, wages of skilled workers and researchers will rise, which will increase your R&D costs and reduce your current incentives even more. So for existing companies, innovation is a rather difficult decision. They might want to retain their status quo. However, we have newcomers, we have startups, and yeah, of course, here is a conflict between existing businesses and startups. And startups, they bring novel technologies and products. And of course, it is very tempting for existing companies to make it more difficult for startups to innovate and enter the market with novel products and technologies. And what they can do is they can just go to regulators and ask them to come up with some laws and impose these novel regulations that would make it more difficult for newcomers to innovate. And we also should talk about how creative destruction influences employment. As novel technologies and products appear on the market, more professions become obsolete. Like we can see it with AI these days, how people are really worried about AI taking their jobs. And of course, like we cannot ignore this impact of creative destruction. Governments must not ignore it. We should look for ways to help people find new jobs and new opportunities, because eventually, if too many people lose their jobs, it will impact our economic growth. And one more thing that the laureates discuss is the situation when the economy can get stuck in a cycle where innovation stops entirely, because every company expects innovation to resume later, making it unprofitable to innovate now. So what is the point to innovate now if we expect more innovative products in the next period? And yeah, it's a never-ending cycle in general, and escaping it would require some external intervention, such as government R&D support. So we just want to avoid this situation as much as possible. So as you can see, there is a lot of conflict here. This model is very complex. It raises a lot of questions. And yeah, I feel that I might need to get back to this model later once again to consider other details. But I try to explain it as simple as possible so that everyone can understand. But this model has its influence in many different areas, including regulation. And apart from that, I believe that the model Professor Aghion and Professor Howitt suggested shows how everything in the economy is intertwined and how different factors and conflicting interests balance and influence R&D and economic growth. It shows how much society should be involved in subsidizing R&D activities, sometimes depending on time and market conditions. And, because it cannot stop. We cannot just stop here. We have to keep innovating if we want to have this continuous growth, if we want to improve our living conditions. And also this model shows how important it is for governments not to focus on business interests only, because otherwise we can forget about this growth. Because for the current companies, for the existing companies, again, innovation is a difficult decision to make, but it also shows how important it is to support innovators, entrepreneurs, and researchers and employees in general so that we can move forward constantly. It also shows how important sharing knowledge is, because new products are created based on previous innovations. There is a lot of research based on this model, and I can totally understand why. But what can company owners and managers learn from it? First of all, I think we should talk about creative destruction, its importance, and the importance of innovating and being able to be a destructor of your own products sometimes. Innovation is all about risk. However, you have to risk in order to save your business sometimes. Think about it. What is better? To risk and have a chance to win, or to stay where you are, waiting until what you do, until your product becomes obsolete? I think the first one is preferable. And in general, I think that's basically the only way to win. And of course, it is simpler for large companies, for big corporation enterprises with lots of people, lots of opportunities and money, and more or less stable position in the market. They can take innovation more easily, though of course they do innovate too. It's just mostly they innovate incrementally, slightly improving their current products to not entirely cannibalize their profits, to balance gains from new products and spendings on R&D. But even they have to consider disruptors, they have to consider startups coming with new technologies and solutions for their customers. But for small and medium companies, innovating is essential. Creating something new, something better than existing products, and then creating something better than your own product is the way to grow. Moreover, when I mentioned that there might be different rules for different types of markets, let's be real, I'm pretty sure that there aren't many managers and company owners who have outstanding innovative products to be in a situation of temporary monopoly. For other cases, in other markets, oligopolies, for example, the incentives to innovate are much higher, especially when your product is not the market leader. And that's where you can innovate and you can create something completely new and take this leading position on the market. I also remember having a conversation with Dr. Christoph Appert about innovation, and he mentioned a case when the company he was working for made a risky decision and introduced a completely new product instead of their old one. They sacrificed their old product for the prosperity of the new one, and they won. And this is actually something that is also mentioned in the Oxford Handbook of Innovation Management. A willingness to cannibalize current products and services in favor of new ones is one of the virtues of companies that are more successful in innovation than others. What I'm just trying to say is that if you want your business to be successful, you have to get in process of creative destruction, even with your own product sometimes, even though it might seem counterintuitive and extremely risky. I think for smaller companies, it might be the right move. The next point is that you have to be flexible and you have to adapt, be ready to adapt to the situation. You cannot always be on the edge of the latest technologies and innovations. There are too many competitors and entrepreneurs out there. So when a new technology enters the market, you should be ready to adjust your product or look for new opportunities and new innovative products. However, the main point for me from this year's Nobel laureates is that everything is interconnected. We cannot look at things and processes separately. Economic growth depends on innovation, but not on random innovation, though innovation is always kind of random, but it relies on the balance of various pieces. And these pieces include our society and the prosperity of our society. Business owners and managers have to take it into account if they want to achieve success. We are looking for simplicity. It's our nature, okay? But the world around us is complex, and there are too many nodes and strings, and again, everything is connected. You have to consider it all to avoid breaking your balance. You pull one string too much and you break it. And you might think that I'm talking about our society in general. Yes, but it's also about your company, because your company, your business is a smaller system in itself. So when you make a decision to focus on one single thing, for example, your revenue, without considering your competitors or your customers, what they're looking for, their needs, the needs of your employees, the needs of society, you will not reach this long-term success, the sustainable growth you're looking for, because it's all interconnected. I mean, obviously, if you're looking for something quick, just get quick money and close your business, you might forget about complexity. But for this long-term success, for this growth, many businesses are looking for, you have to look deeper. And you have to be curious, because again, curiosity just helps. This is going to help you. Okay, I'm gonna leave some links to the materials about this year's Nobel Prize, its laureates and their models in the description below. Feel free to check it. Also, if you have some questions or some thoughts, please share them in the comment section below. Or if you just want to talk about it privately, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I wish you good luck with your innovation projects and hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Bye!